not just as a provider, not just as a protector, but simply as a person. And the truth is, men are drawn to women who answer that question with a resounding yes, not through words, but through the way they make them feel. A man doesn't fall in love because a woman checks every box on some imaginary list. He falls in love because around her, he feels deeply valued, not for what he can do, not for the trophies he earns, but for who he is. His fears, his flaws, his dreams, all of it. When a woman looks at him and sees him, not the job title, not the bank account, not the social image, but the human being underneath, he finds himself willing to give her the parts of himself he hides from the rest of the world. And if there's one thing men rarely find but desperately need, it's the feeling of emotional safety. A place where he doesn't have to perform. A space where vulnerability isn't punished or ridiculed. When a man feels that he can drop the armor and still be loved, maybe even loved more because he dares to be real, he stops looking elsewhere. He knows he's home. But men don't want to be managed. They don't want to feel like a project to be improved. They want to feel admired. They want to be appreciated, not because they're perfect, but because someone chooses to see the good in them even on their worst day. True admiration isn't manipulation. It's genuine recognition. It's the smile that says, I see something wonderful in you, even when you can't see it in yourself. Beyond admiration, men seek meaning. They want to know that being with you gives their life more depth, more purpose, not because they are trying to rescue you and not because they complete you, but because walking side by side with you feels like a mission worth living. When a man feels that he matters to you, that his presence adds something real to your journey, his loyalty becomes unshakable. Commitment to a man isn't about losing freedom. It's about finding the kind of love that celebrates who he already is. The right woman doesn't clip his wings. She helps him fly further. She doesn't demand he becomes someone else. She inspires him to become more of himself. When commitment feels like freedom, not confinement, a man gives everything he has, not out of duty, but out of joy. And above all else, men want respect. Not the kind of respect you give when he earns another promotion, wins another battle, or achieves another goal. Real respect, the kind that says, I honor you even when you're struggling. I trust you even when you doubt yourself. Respect like that builds a foundation stronger than passion alone ever could. Men fall in love with how a woman makes them feel about themselves. They stay when they feel seen, when they feel safe, when they feel admired, when they feel purposeful, when they feel free, and when they feel respected. And the most beautiful part is this. When a man receives all these feelings from the woman he loves, he doesn't just love her, he cherishes her. He fights for her, he builds with her. Because she didn't just win his heart, she gave him back his soul. One of the deepest longings inside a man is simple but so often misunderstood. He doesn't just want to be needed for what he can do, he wants to be valued for who he is. And yet so much of the messaging men receive, both from the world and sometimes even from the people they love, is that their worth is measured by their usefulness, by how much they earn, by how strong they are, by how many problems they can solve. It becomes easy for a man to believe that if he stops performing, he stops mattering. What draws a man into lasting love isn't the feeling that he's someone's provider, fixer, or protector. It's the feeling that he's cherished even when he's not achieving anything at all, that he could lose the job, lose the title, lose the ability to impress, and still be wanted, not for the image he can project, but for the human being he is underneath it all. Because when a man feels that kind of acceptance, when he feels valued, apart from what he produces, he experiences something rare, peace. In a world where every day feels like a race to prove himself, being around someone who doesn't ask for the resume, who doesn't tally up the victories, who doesn't measure love in points scored, that is life-changing, that is healing. It's easy to admire a man when he's winning, it's easy to love him when he's strong, confident, and on top of his game. But the real test, the real connection, happens when he's struggling, when he's uncertain, when he's afraid. How a woman treats him in those moments tells him everything he needs to know about her love, because deep down every man is asking, if I stop being impressive, will you still stay? If I fall, will you still see me as worthy? If I fail, will you still believe in me? The women who truly capture a man's heart are the ones who don't just celebrate the victories, they love the man behind them. They are the ones who, even when everything else is stripped away, still look him in the eye and say, you are enough. You have nothing to prove to me. And that doesn't mean lowering standards or pretending that ambition, protection, and responsibility don't matter. It means separating a man's identity from his performance. It means loving him first for the soul inside him. Not for the titles, not for the possessions, not for the outcome. Those things are bonuses. They're not the foundation. When a man feels safe enough to show up without his armor, to be imperfect, to not have all the answers, and still be loved, not tolerated, not pitied, but loved, it transforms the way he loves back. He becomes softer, more open, more devoted. He stops needing to prove and starts wanting to give. He stops seeing love as a transaction to win and starts seeing it as a place where he is finally free. It's a powerful thing when a woman looks at a man and loves him, not for the walls he builds, but for the heart he hides behind them. It gives him the courage to step into the world with greater strength because he knows that at the end of the day, his value isn't conditional. His worth isn't up for debate. It's seen, it's honored, it's celebrated, and in the end, that's all any man really wants. To be loved not for the battles he wins, but simply for the soul he offers. To be valued not for what he can provide, but for who he dares to be. Every man, no matter how strong he looks, carries a hidden world inside him. A world full of fears, doubts, insecurities, hopes he barely speaks of, and wounds that never fully healed. Yet most of the time, the world doesn't invite him to show that side. It teaches him to hide it, to be tough, to be composed, to be unshakable. And so he wears the armor. He smiles when he's breaking inside. He acts certain when he's full of questions. He carries burdens in silence because the message has been clear for so long. Vulnerability is weakness. But the truth is, vulnerability isn't weakness at all. Vulnerability is the purest form of courage. It's saying, here's who I really am, knowing full well that rejection could follow. It's offering your heart without guarantees. And for a man, the rarest, most precious feeling he can find is a place, a person, where it's safe to be vulnerable. A man doesn't open up because he's asked to. He doesn't reveal his heart because someone demands it. He opens when his senses that his broken pieces won't be used against him. He reveals his softer side only when he feels that it will be met with compassion, not judgment. When a woman creates an environment where he can lay down his armor without fear, it unlocks a level of intimacy and connection that most people never experience. Because real intimacy isn't built through shared hobbies or perfect dates. It's built when two people show each other their scars and stay. It's built when he can say, I'm scared, I'm tired, I'm hurting. And instead of hearing criticism or seeing disappointment in her eyes, he finds empathy. He finds patience. He finds love. Many men have never truly felt that before. They've been taught that their worth is tied to their usefulness, to their ability to stay strong no matter what. So they often suffer in silence. They laugh when they want to cry. They stay busy when they really want to sit still and be heard. And when they finally find someone who says through her actions, you don't have to be perfect here, you don't have to have it all figured out with me, it breaks them wide open in the best possible way. That feeling, the feeling that he can be fully himself, raw and real, without risking abandonment, that feeling is what keeps a man connected at the deepest level. It's not just love he feels, it's relief, it's peace. It's the sense that he can finally breathe, maybe for the first time in years. When a man feels safe to be vulnerable, he becomes more than just a partner. He becomes a giver of his deepest loyalty. He starts sharing parts of himself he didn't even know he had the words for. He listens more. He loves harder. He dreams bigger. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because safety gives birth to strength. Because the acceptance he feels from her gives him the power to face the world without fear of losing himself. It's easy to love the confident, smiling, capable version of a man. But it's a rare kind of love that welcomes the scared, uncertain, doubting parts too. And when a woman gives a man that gift, the gift of being his whole self, she doesn't just win his affection. She wins his trust, his respect, his forever. At the end of the day, the strongest relationships are not built on the absence of fear, but on the safety to express it. The men who love most deeply are the men who have finally found someone who didn't ask them to be bulletproof, but instead offered them a place where even their brokenness was seen as beautiful. There's a kind of magic that happens when a man feels admired by the woman he loves. It's not the admiration that comes from being flawless or always getting it right. It's the admiration that sees his effort, that notices his heart, that celebrates who he is becoming, not just who he already is. Every man deep down is fueled by the simple but powerful desire to feel seen as worthy, not because someone is trying to fix him, but because so often love slips into control without anyone meaning for it to happen. It starts subtly, a suggestion here, a correction there. Over time, a man can feel like he's being molded into someone else's idea of who he should be, instead of being loved for who he actually is. And when that happens, even if he stays physically, something inside him begins to pull away emotionally. No one, not even the strongest man, wants to feel like he is a project to be managed. He wants to feel like he is a person to be admired. Admiration breathes life into a man. It tells him, you're enough. I see you trying and I love you, not because you're perfect, but because you're you. It's not about ignoring flaws or pretending challenges don't exist. It's about choosing to focus more on what's right than on what's right. It's about highlighting the strengths more than pointing out the weaknesses. When a woman admires a man, she calls out the best in him. She invites him to step into his strength without fear. She becomes a mirror that reflects not just his reality, but his potential. And because she believes in him, he starts believing even more in himself. He wants to rise, not out of pressure or obligation, but out of joy and inspiration. Control, on the other hand, drains a man's spirit. It makes him feel like no matter what he does, it's never quite enough. It turns love into a series of requirements instead of a celebration. And over time, it replaces connection with compliance. A man may comply for a while to keep the peace, but eventually he will start to feel caged. He'll start to lose the spark that made him love in the first place. Men are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to passion. They are drawn to the woman who sees them at their worst and still finds something good worth fighting for. They are drawn to the kind of admiration that feels effortless, the kind that isn't demanded but given freely because it's real. And when a man feels that, he becomes fiercely loyal, he becomes protective, not because he's obligated to, but because he is proud of the person standing beside him. That means they want to be mature, and it means they want to create opportunities. They do, they want to be challenged, but by someone who challenges them with belief, not criticism. They want to be encouraged, not micromanaged. They want to be pushed toward greatness, but in a way that honors their freedom, not strips them of it. And at the end of the day, admiration and control come from two very different places. Control comes from fear that if you don't shape him, he'll never be enough. Emotion comes from trust that he is already enough, and that in the right environment, he will only become more of who he's meant to be. A man will always be drawn back to the woman who made him feel admired, not managed, because in her presence, he doesn't feel small, he feels expansive. He doesn't feel trapped, he feels trusted. And that feeling, once found, is not something a man easily lets go of. Every human being deep down needs a sense of purpose. It's what gives life meaning. It's what makes the struggles worth it. And for a man inside a relationship, that feeling of purpose isn't just important, it's everything. Without it, he may stay physically present, but emotionally he begins to drift. With it, he comes alive. He feels invested, energized, deeply rooted in something greater than himself. A man doesn't want to just exist next to someone. He wants to matter to her. He wants to feel like his presence adds real value, that who he is and what he brings into the relationship make her life better in a way no one else could. It's not about ego. It's not about needing constant praise. It's about meaning. It's about believing that being with her makes him part of something bigger, something beautiful, something worth protecting, building, and sacrificing for. When a woman invites a man into a relationship where he has a clear purpose, something powerful happens. He stops seeing the relationship as something to maintain and starts seeing it as something to nurture, to fight for, to grow with. He moves from passivity to passion. He becomes an active participant, not because he's forced, but because he wants to be there. He feels like he belongs, like he is needed, not in a desperate way, but in a meaningful, dignified way. A lot of relationships crumble not because there isn't love, but because one or both people lose their sense of purpose within it. They start asking, often silently, why am I here? What difference do I make? If a man feels like he could leave and nothing would really change, it's only a matter of time before his heart begins to disengage. Men stay. Truly stay. When they know that their role matters, when they believe that the love they give is seen, received, and needed. Purpose doesn't mean being someone's savior. It doesn't mean being responsible for someone else's happiness. It means being a partner in a shared mission. Building a life together, lifting each other higher, dreaming together, facing fears together. It means knowing that the relationship is stronger because of both people bringing their unique strengths and spirits into it, Men don't fall in love just because someone makes them feel good in the moment. They fall in love when they see a future where they matter. They fall in love when they see that they have a role to play, that their effort builds something lasting. When they feel that their emotional investment creates real impact, their loyalty becomes unshakable. The feeling of purpose within a relationship transforms the way a man loves. It shifts him from focusing on short-term pleasures to committing to long-term growth. It moves him from avoiding hard conversations to leaning into them because he understands that what he's building matters, that the relationship itself is a kind of living, breathing project, one that deserves effort, sacrifice, and heart. Without purpose, even the strongest chemistry fades. Without purpose, even shared memories lose their meaning. But with purpose, love deepens, trust grows, passion evolves. And a man who feels purposeful beside a woman doesn't just love her, he commits to her with everything he has. Because at the end of the day, purpose is what turns a good relationship into an extraordinary one. It's what gives love roots. It's what makes two people not just love each other, but build something together that they are both proud to stand inside of. When a man feels that kind of purpose in a relationship, leaving is never a question. Building, growing, loving, that becomes his mission. There's a common lie people believe, that commitment means the death of freedom, that choosing one person for life means closing every door, surrendering all dreams, giving up pieces of yourself. But real love, real commitment doesn't imprison a man, it sets him free in ways he didn't even know he needed. It gives him the safety to be fully himself without fear of abandonment. It gives him the confidence to dream even bigger because he knows he's not walking the road alone. A man doesn't run from commitment because he doesn't want to love. He runs when commitment feels like a cage instead of a choice. He runs when love becomes a list of demands rather than an invitation to become more of who he is. But when a man finds a relationship where commitment and freedom live side by side, he doesn't feel trapped, he feels trusted. He doesn't feel chained, he feels chosen. And that changes everything. True freedom within commitment isn't about doing whatever you want without consequences. It's about being in a relationship that values individuality as much as unity. It's about knowing that your voice matters, your dreams matter. Your differences are not threats, they're strengths. It's about having space to grow, space to fail, space to evolve, all while staying deeply connected to someone who believes in your journey. When a man feels freedom within commitment, he doesn't fear losing himself. He finds more of himself. He discovers new strengths because he knows he has someone standing beside him who isn't trying to mold him, but is instead cheering him on. Love becomes a place of possibility, not limitation. It becomes a foundation he can build his life on without sacrificing his soul. In the right relationship, commitment isn't the end of freedom. It's the beginning of a deeper, richer kind of freedom. It's the freedom to be vulnerable without shame, the freedom to dream without fear of ridicule, the freedom to fail without the constant terror of being left behind. That kind of freedom doesn't weaken commitment, it strengthens it. It makes a man want to show up, want to invest, want to protect and nurture the bond he has. Relationships that thrive understand this delicate balance. They aren't built on ownership, they're built on partnership. They don't thrive by controlling each other's every move. They thrive by encouraging each other's highest selves. They don't restrict, they release potential. And it's in that environment that commitment stops being a duty and starts being a joy. A man who feels free within his commitment becomes the kind of partner everyone dreams of, not because he's forced to stay, but because he passionately wants to. His loyalty isn't motivated by fear or obligation. It's motivated by love, gratitude, and deep respect for the person who gave him that rare, priceless gift of freedom within love. He doesn't see commitment as a set of heavy chains. He sees it as a foundation for his willingness, for his growth, for his peace. He sees his relationship not as something that limits his life, but as something that amplifies it. And when life inevitably throws challenges their way, he doesn't waver. He doesn't wonder if the grass is greener somewhere else. He knows he's exactly where he wants to be, not because he has to be there, but because he chooses to be there every single day. At the end of the day, the deepest love stories are not about control, they're about freedom. The strongest bonds are not made by force. They are made by two people who see each other clearly, love each other fiercely, and trust each other enough to let each other fly, knowing that real commitment never clips wings. It builds runways. Respect is one of the deepest needs in any relationship, but for a man, it carries a special weight. It's not enough to be loved if he doesn't also feel respected. Love without respect feels hollow. It feels temporary. Real respect is the oxygen that a man's heart needs to fully open, fully commit, and fully give his best. And the kind of respect that changes everything is the respect that comes without conditions. It's not based on how much he earns, how perfectly he performs, or how often he says the right things. It's a respect rooted in the recognition of his core worth, his effort, his humanity. When a man senses that respect is only offered when he wins, when he succeeds, when he checks every box, it crushes something inside him. It makes him feel like he's living on a tightrope, where one wrong move means losing everything. That kind of conditional respect leads not to deeper connection, but to quiet resentment and withdrawal. It teaches him that love is something he has to earn, over and over again, that he is never quite enough as he is. That when a woman offers respect without conditions, something extraordinary happens. A man begins to trust. He begins to relax. He begins to bring more of himself to the relationship, not less. He doesn't fear that his failures will define him in her eyes. He doesn't worry that a bad day or a broken dream will erase the value she sees in him. Instead, he knows that her respect is not a prize to be won. It's a gift she chooses to give simply because she sees who he truly is. Respect without conditions doesn't mean ignoring flaws or pretending mistakes don't matter. It means holding space for his imperfection without diminishing his dignity. It means believing in his goodness even when he struggles. It means recognizing his intentions, not just judging his outcome. And when he feels that kind of respect, he doesn't settle into laziness or take it for granted. He rises. He grows. He wants to be worthy of the trust and honor he's been given. Every man needs to know that he is respected, not just for what he does, but for who he is. For the battles he fights silently, for the burdens he carries without complaint, for the way he keeps showing up, even when it would be easier to quit. Respect tells him, I see you. I see your effort. I see your struggle, and I'm proud of you. When respect is present without strings attached, it fuels loyalty. It deepens emotional intimacy. It turns small moments into sacred ones. A man who feels respected will listen more deeply, love more openly, and sacrifice more willingly, not because he feels forced to, but because he feels honored to. Respect is not just an attitude, it's an action. It's how you speak to him. It's how you speak about him when he's not in the room. It's the tone you use, the patience you extend, the faith you show in his ability to lead, to heal, to become more. In the end, respect is not about agreeing with everything he says or does. It's about choosing to believe in his value, even when you disagree. It's about letting him know that your admiration for him isn't fragile, isn't easily broken, and isn't dependent on perfection. When a man feels respect without conditions, he finds the strength to keep becoming the man he's meant to be. And he finds a love he wants to protect with everything he has. Because when someone sees your value at your worst and treats you with honor even then, that's a kind of loyalty you never forget. It's a bond that can survive anything.